Good morning. It is Friday. We have successfully made it almost all the way through this school week. And if your school is like the school I work at, you're chatting about what to do with coronavirus. And fortunately or unfortunately, schools are responding very rapidly to this new bio threat, this new illness threat, this pandemic. Please forgive me for any medical terminology misuse. I am not a doctor, nor do I play one on TV. I'm simply Meg Flanagan, education advocate. I support families who are looking to feel less stress and find more success with their child's education plans at American public schools. I support military families, students with IEPs, 504 plans, gifted education plans, and any combination thereof. Today we're chatting coronavirus, what happens when your school shuts down, and what this means specifically for your child's education plan. So, first and foremost, the most important thing is that schools are responding to this. They're responding aggressively with forethought and an abundance of caution, to use the terminology that is floating around in our lexicon right now. An abundance of caution seems to be what many states and schools and people are using right now. Clearly, this is a virus that is spreading very rapidly. There are very minimal treatments, if any. There is no vaccine for it. We are still learning every single day how this spreads. For goodness sakes, Tom Hanks has this. And if the beloved Tom Hanks can contract this virus, then it's time to be proactive and thoughtful about our engagements and actions with others. And this includes school, because we have hundreds, if not thousands, of teeny tiny or some big bodies all crowded together in one building, sharing bathrooms, water fountains, sinks. Everyone is touching doorknobs, and you've got to know that not all of those children listen to mom and dad when they say don't pick your nose and eat it. They also don't all wash their hands after they use the restroom, and that's frankly disgusting and a topic for another day. However, coronavirus doesn't seem to impact the young, but there are also adults in that building. I know in my school district, a number of adults connected to the schools have already self-quarantined. There are many cases popping up where I am in Virginia. The governor here has declared a state of emergency. So I work for a Catholic school system. My kids attend public school. But the Catholic schools in Northern Virginia shut down today. Fairfax County shut down today. They're shutting down again on Monday. People are taking this very seriously, as you should. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people are already infected worldwide. There have been thousands and thousands of deaths already. And so we need to be proactive. So what happens if your child's school shuts down? So first, don't panic. This is probably a good thing. It means they want people to not be near each other. They don't want hundreds of children and adults touching the same doorknobs and maybe not having washed their hands. And they want to limit people's interactions. This is called social distancing. And it's not a bad thing. Not a bad thing at all. It means that you're going to be avoiding large crowds and places where lots of germs can spread. And that's not bad. Especially for many of our children who are immunocompromised or medically fragile. That's a lot of kids on 504 plans and IEPs, kids that just don't have the natural defenses that a typically developing 100% healthy child might have. And that's fine. So what now? So what happens next, if you read the article I posted from Understood yesterday, what happens next is kind of complicated, and it depends on how your school acts and reacts to this. So I know that in my daughter's school district, they are doing a lot of chatting about distance learning, which is awesome, because then that means that there will be some semblance of education ongoing, or educational resources ongoing, which hopefully will not impact the length of the school year into the summer. But it also means that I am now responsible for my child's learning, which isn't a big deal for me because I'm a teacher anyway. And we do a lot of learning and reading stuff at home. Also, she's in kindergarten, so it's kind of low stress. It's not there's not a lot going on in kindergarten right now. Letters and numbers and learning to read. It's low stress for me. When you get to middle elementary school and above, that's when it's going to become a little bit more challenging and intensive. You are going to, should your child's school district shut down and move to a remote or virtual or distance learning platform, this means that your child will probably be in charge of a device, a Chromebook, an iPad, a MacBook, some sort of technology device where they will need to have an internet connection in order to access their learning materials. Which means that you will be responsible for providing that technology hookup, that virtual hookup. So you should probably check your Wi-Fi, making sure you have it. If you are responsible for providing that technology piece, that is something to confirm with your school, because every child in America is guaranteed access to education. If distance learning, virtual distance learning via the internet is going to be happening, then schools should be making resources available to parents. Projecting this out, if schools are closing, I'm guessing that libraries and public spaces with shared internet access are also going to be closing or severely restricted. I know that many libraries in Northern Virginia are already pulling back, especially in the kids section, the shared toys. So we have a really nice library in our neighborhood that has a ton of shared toys. All those toys disappeared yesterday. Because it's simply not safe for children, especially young children, babies, right, who maybe don't have the immune system defenses that older children might have or adults might have. They're putting things in their mouth, they're touching things they shouldn't be touching, things that are shared with people that might have this disease, this virus. So they're pulling back on those. So I'm guessing that in short order, libraries will have severely limited resources available, probably close, maybe close. It depends on what's happening. So you will need to make a game plan for how to get your child access to either a device and or the internet at your home or at a home that you are deeming safe for your family to access. If that is not possible for your family, it is time to have that conversation with your child's school about what technology resources they are providing your child, and if there are alternate ways to access them other than a personal device, and what that might look like. This is, again, equal access to resources and material, which brings me to IEPs. So if your child's school is shutting down and literally zero instruction is going to be happening, there are no learning packets being sent home for use at home, there are no online things that are happening, then your child's IEP, basically if no general education is happening for typically developing children who do not receive any support services, your child's education falls under that category at this time, and no services will probably be provided. That includes speech, language, assistive, supplementary instruction, differentiated instruction, special education settings. Because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So if they're not providing it for everyone, they don't technically have to provide it for you. Think of this like a snow day. No one's going into school on a snow day. Your child doesn't go to school on a snow day. That means they don't need to make up that day because no one else is getting education on that day. However, if your child's school is providing educational resources for the duration of the coronavirus shutdown, which who knows how long that will be, your child is also likely entitled to services and support. What that looks like will depend on what services and support your child is receiving. Therapies, instruction, all of that is going to be a negotiation process between you and the school. If you believe your district is facing an impending shutdown, you need to have that conversation today. Do not wait. Do not pause. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Send that email today. You need to send an email to the principal, the director of special education services or 504 services or gifted education services. We'll get to gifted education loopholes in a minute. And 504 in a minute. But specifically for IEPs, you need to be sending an email to the child's teacher or teachers, the building principal, the building special education coordinator and someone at the district level for special education, whether that's the IEP coordinator, the IEP admin, the IEP superintendent, you need to be sending an email today that says, given the evolving status of the coronavirus pandemic, this district, the school's response to it, to include shutdowns, distance learning, virtual learning, all of the above, we need to have a conversation before school shuts down, before the district is officially closed, that details out what services my child will be entitled to. If they try to say nothing, then you need to bring up that if they are providing virtual education services, then you need to bring up the fact that everyone else is getting education in some form or another, and your child is guaranteed FAPE, free access to public education. If other children are getting public education during a school shutdown, your child is legally guaranteed that. Please don't quote me on that. I am not a lawyer. Please don't go around saying that Mike Flanagan can give you legal advice, because I 100% do not give you legal advice. I can point you in the direction of the laws, but I cannot give you legal advice. So have that conversation. Please send that email today. If you need help sending that email, please email me at milkkidsed@gmail.com. I would love to support you in this. The Pick My Brain session is ideal for situations like this, where you need to have a quick, fast negotiation. You need to be in and out the door. You need to have something in writing. It's a super easy way to do this when you, I know, are overwhelmed and anxious and frustrated and flabbergasted by what all is happening and what all your school district's response is going to be. It's a scary time. So that's IEPs. Again, if your child's school is providing an educational service in any way, shape, or form, virtual, distance, a learning packet, to tide students over with learning skills and education during a coronavirus shutdown, your child is also entitled to educational service and access. What that looks like depends on your specific child's plan and the negotiations that you have with your school. Please start that conversation via email today, because as I always say, if it's not in writing, it 100% never happened. And right now you need every single bit of this stuff in writing, because everyone is flustered too. So, students with a 504 plan. Generally, students with 504 plans do not receive special services like speech, language, OT. In some cases they might, and that is a negotiation you need to have with your school. Because generally those services are provided in order to ensure equal access to the educational setting, not necessarily to correct something, but just to provide them a better way to access their environment. So, if your child receives any sort of support services, speech, language, PT, OT, social skills, ABA, any of that through a 504 plan, and you believe that your child's school is shutting down, send the same email. I need to know what's happening with my child's 504 plan related services. If your child's school is shutting down and your child simply receives accommodations, you don't need to do anything else. Just do the learning packet at home as best you can, work on the distance learning as best you can, use those accommodations as best you can. It's not going to be a big deal. I just realized those lamps behind my ears look like earrings. Cool. So it's not going to be a big deal. It's going to be okay. When your child returns to school, that 504 plan will still be there. They will still receive all those same accommodations to their learning environment. They'll still receive extended time. They'll still receive, sensory breaks, bigger print, whatever their accommodations are. No extra time, no extra concern on your part is warranted unless there are services involved. Now let's get to kids with gifted education plans. Gifted education plans are not federally protected, which means there is no law that you can look at the federal level to say that my child who is receiving gifted education services should be given compensatory education, which means extra time in class, such as in summer school or with a tutor, because they missed school due to a coronavirus shutdown and therefore did not receive their planned education services. There's not a federal law that you can look at. If you live in a state with GIEPs, gifted individualized education plans, that means that your state individually has interpreted IDEA, the federal special education law, to mean that it includes gifted children. You need to look at the wording of your state law to determine if your child will be eligible for compensatory or supplementary education services due to an ongoing school shutdown. It all depends on the legal language of your particular state's laws. I do not have the wording of every single state's law in front of me when it comes to gifted education, and so that is going to be on you. You need to look up gifted education laws in your state. Rightslaw.org, I think. Rights Law will help you. They are the go-to legal source for special education. Advocates, including myself, go there on an almost daily basis to help people, to help themselves better understand how this particular law breaks down for their clients. So if you are my client and you are, have a legal question, I'm going to direct you to Rights Law. That's where we go. The other good place to look is understood.org. That is a great resource for all things special education. They are basically a clearinghouse of information. So if Rights Law has it, then I also check understood.org to make sure that it's kind of like a double dip. Like I see it in two places, and so now I know it's a for sure thing. So please make sure that you are reading your state's laws about gifted education. Now let's talk about compensatory education. Compensatory education, as I previously mentioned, is when your child receives additional instruction beyond the typical school year or beyond the typical school day in order to make up for time missed due to unforeseen circumstances, basically an act of God. So this would mean that, the coronavirus shutdown went in for, 6 months, let's say. I don't think it will. I hope it won't. Or 6 weeks. 6 weeks seems more reasonable. Coronavirus shutdown went on for 6 weeks. And your child, for whatever reason, was unable to access their IEP mandated support services and instructional services. So they might offer your child additional time after school with a tutor to make up that time. They may offer your child summer school in order to make up that time. That is called compensatory education. Other times, school districts will offer parents a flat fee, a flat payment to make up for time missed. That is something to triple check on Rights Law. I haven't personally had a client who has received money from a district due to missed education, but I definitely know that there are advocates and attorneys out there who have had clients who have fought for clients to receive funds due to extended missed education. So if you think this is going to go on longer than support services are going to be provided, then you need to be tracking everything. One thing you can do today, beyond sending the email to confirm what your child will be getting during a coronavirus shutdown in terms of instruction and support therapies or support services, is to read your child's IEP with a fine-tooth comb. Go through it, track every single minute, make a grid for yourself. How many minutes of speech, how many minutes of ABA, how many minutes of math support, how many minutes of all the things is my child supposed to be getting on a daily basis. That is very important to know, especially if your child is moving to homebound instruction or to virtual instruction or to whatever you've negotiated with the school. Please do that today. So 2 items on your checklist for today are to write the email opening the discussion about what is going to happen with my child's IEP or 504 plan related support services, and go through your child's education plan with a fine-tooth comb and really make sure that you are tracking on their service minutes. That is incredibly important to know, not just for coronavirus, but really for any time. The last thing that I want to talk about is if your child is medically fragile or ill and needs to stay home for an extended period of time, like a quarantine. So after a certain period of time, most states, and the federal law move students from a traditional in-school IEP to what is called homebound educational services. And there are special education teachers in every single district who provide homebound education services. Think of them like traveling teachers, where they arrive at your home, they provide some instruction for your child like a tutor would, but it's IEP based and based on your child's needs. Sometimes therapists are involved as well. But every single state and the federal level has this clause built in called homebound instruction when a child is too ill or too medically fragile to attend school. If you anticipate this for your child, then that also needs to be included in your email to the district today. You need to specifically spell out what is your policy about homebound instruction for self-quarantine, for required quarantine, for extended illness, for immunocompromised or medically fragile children, given the current health situation. That should be part of your negotiation if your child falls into one or more of those categories. This is something that you cannot hit pause on, you cannot wait on. I'm not trying to be alarmist. This is something that I have thought about all week long, that I have thought about for my own children, that I've thought about for my own students at the school where I teach, that I have thought about for my colleagues' students, and that I have thought about for every child that attends school in the United States. This is a very scary situation. I know that there is a lot of temptation to make light of it, to underreact, to assume that the best outcome, but I also want you to be forewarned and prepared. Forewarned, forearmed? Let's just say prepared. To respond to the situation with being proactive and being the best advocate for your child possible. Again, if you need help having this conversation with your child's teacher, I would love to book you into a Pick My Brain session where we can formulate that email, we can make that conversation happen in a really clear, facilitated manner, and we can get those negotiations started. I want to make sure that your child's education is going to continue according to IDEA, so your child receives FAPE. This is legally required, this is ethically required in my opinion, and that, every child deserves to learn. But every child deserves to learn safely, and if your child's school is shutting down, then it's probably for a very good reason. The last thing I want to talk about is children who are reliant on school for a safe place and for food. Please keep these children. If this is your family, my heart goes out to you. My thoughts are with you. If you live in a district where you know that there are a lot of children who receive free and reduced lunch who might not have a food stable environment at home, please, whether or not you are reaching out about your child's education plan, please reach out to someone in your district or in your building to ask them what are they going to do for children who rely on the school for lunch and possibly for dinner. There are too many children in this country who go hungry at night, who count on school for a well-rounded breakfast and for a well-rounded lunch provided at minimal or no cost to them. These might be the only solid meals that they are eating in a day. It is so incredibly important that we keep these families and these children in our thoughts and prayers and in our proactive responses to this. Please email your principals, please email your district admin. Ask them what they're going to be doing for the kids who maybe don't eat at night or maybe don't eat over the weekend. I'm sorry to tear up, but this is something that's really close to my heart. My child's district is a district with many children who do not live in food stable homes. And one of the very first districts I ever taught in was a district with literally every single child in the school just automatically got free and reduced lunch. It was a very poor district, and I know that a lot of my students that year did not eat between the time they ate lunch at school and the time they came back to school the next day for breakfast. It's a sad reality in our country, but no child should go hungry, ever. If this is true of your district or true of an area of your state, this needs to be addressed at a higher level. I'm encouraging you to advocate for these children as well as your own, to whatever level you feel comfortable, at the individual school building level, at the district level, at your town or city or county level, or even take it up to the state level and contact your state representatives, your state senators, and your governor. Everyone needs to be on board to make sure that our children are fed, safe, healthy, and educated, especially during these scary and trying times. If you have questions about coronavirus, about how to handle your child's education during coronavirus, about your child's IEP 504 plan or gifted education plan during coronavirus, please email me at millkidsed@gmail.com. I am happy to chat with you for free for about 15 minutes just to give you an idea of what I can do to help you. If you're ready to start the conversation with your child's school and need a little support, please go ahead and book a a 90-minute Pick My Brain session. You can book that over at megflanagan.com/education-advocacy or megflanagan.com/shop. It's the Pick My Brain option. It's 90 minutes, and that is enough time for you to get a well-crafted letter opening negotiations and to create a plan to have those negotiations, as well as to debrief after your negotiations begin. Please be safe. Please wash your hands. Use a tissue, and sanitize everything. Stay healthy, my friends.